This video was made possible by you. If you want to save time and support what I do, check the link in the description that will take you to my store where you can purchase the source file for what we're creating in this video, as well as other tutorials on my channel. Thank you for your support, and let's get back to the video. In this video, we're going to take an ad designed by AI and we're going to try and improve it and see if we can find some mistakes or maybe something that the AI did well, something that was well designed. Let's see if we can come up with something better. So this was the prompt. Let's do a backpack. Target audience would be probably tech-savvy professionals who want to carry their laptop safely, maybe designers. So as you can see, I had a convo with ChatGPT before this. I tried designing some ads. But yeah, just so you know, how did this actually come about? And I'm thinking that we actually could do a list of pros and cons of this design, and from that we can move on to redesigning this. All right, so let's go one by one. I think this ad has a good hierarchy. So I think it features a very well placed headline. We have some USPs, we have some selling points. And overall, the structure is pretty good, I would say. The first con is definitely that it's AI and I'm scared about my job. So that would be definitely one of the drawbacks of this. And to come up with another benefit, I think the headline, I think it's like a good idea, right? Protect your tech in style. I think that's quite a good claim, to be honest. I mean, after all, we're dealing with a language model. So yeah, it does make sense that it came up with something witty, something smart in terms of the copy. Then I would also say that it simply looks good. Aesthetically, it has some kind of a brand identity in place. We have basically a single color. It's like very simple. It's clean, looks good, looks clean. So I think that's definitely a benefit. And it shows everything an ad should show. It is informative. So those are the benefits, I think. And when it comes to drawbacks, I think it's boring, to be honest. It looks too flat, in my opinion. It doesn't stand out. If I saw this, like for me personally, it doesn't look interesting, to be honest. Then related to that is the fact that there is not a high enough contrast. The bag is getting lost against the background. So background, foreground contrast is not, I don't think it's high enough. And this one is not going to be surprising, but I think it lacks creativity. I think it lacks that little bit of something special. Hopefully that is going to remain uniquely human for the foreseeable future, but who knows? So in this specific instance, it seems that AI is either unable or unwilling to include something special, something unique in the design, right? But I think in general, that's an overall property of AI. It basically just takes existing stuff and then rearranges it somehow. But that's a whole other topic. Let's just continue with this. In terms of technical things, the CTA, not high enough contrast, definitely. If you want to include a CTA in your designs, you need to make sure that the contrast against the background is high. This definitely does not count as high contrast. Yes, the text is on a dark background, that's good. However, the whole CTA as an object is not high contrast enough, in my view. So with this analysis now ready, let's try and redesign it a little bit. Let me move this slightly beneath and rearrange it so we can take a look at it anytime. So let me start with creating a frame. Let's make it a similar size, like 860 by 860. I'm going to call this redesigned. And I also, which is also impressive, by the way, and I have to give credit to AI, that I then asked ChatGPT to isolate the image of this bag on a transparent background. And it did that perfectly. I mean, the bag, yeah, of course, yes, it is not 100% identical. For example, look at these two little fellas over here and then here. It's correctly positioned within the object, but it's not 100% identical. But it's pretty good. Looking at this, at first glance, this seems like an identical product. So that's impressive, to be honest. So I'm just going to use that, okay? And now I was talking about not high enough contrast between the background and the foreground. Let's see if we can use black for this one. to be somehow higher contrast. Now I think, yes, I think now the bag stands out more. Maybe if we increase exposure a little bit, right? Let's increase exposure, saturation, maybe reduce it. I don't know. Let's play around with these. We want to adjust this a little bit and not change the color of the actual product too much. But yeah, already you can tell that now the product stands out against the background. Yes, it looks gray, but it's actually very similar in color to this one. You could argue that this is the same object under slightly different lighting, for example. For example, with the headline, I think we could go big with the headline. I think we could go with protect your tech in style. I think we're working with Inter. I think ChatGPT is actually using Inter. We can use that as well. I like the font. It's getting a bit overused, but not a big deal. I think this could be placed behind the backpack. So command left bracket. And of course, the final product, the final outcome of this, you can find it in the video description. You can buy it from my store at a very reasonable price if you want to use this. So why don't I just experiment with where this headline is going to be positioned? 110, 120 in terms of line height. I kind of like when you get headlines or text glued all the way to the edges of the layout. I just think it looks good. I like that. So why don't I try and do that here? Maybe even putting it like behind the backpack. I think that looks cool. Maybe we could also use like a drop shadow on the bag. So let's do some kind of a blur. Yeah, you can see that we get some kind of artifacts, but we can fix that actually. We can use our pen tool and then just do this. Basically like just very quickly where it actually matters to very roughly create the shape, the overall shape of the backpack, right? And then we can actually do a shadow on this and we're gonna get no artifact, right? We're gonna get no artifact. I'm gonna move it here behind the backpack. Yeah, so you can see that there's no artifact now. That's because we're applying the shadow to a different object. Yeah, so the artifact was caused by the actual filter, not the filter, but by the actual effect, sorry. Let me move this. Okay, so as you can see, we have to edit this shape a little bit. So I'm selecting the shape, pressing enter, and then moving this over here. All right, I like that. I like where this is going, to be honest. I'll reduce the opacity or let's just keep it. Okay, so yeah, I think we could go on 90% in terms of line height, semi-bold or bold, probably semi-bold, or like we could do like light and slightly transparent on some of the parts of the headline and then focus on this in style, right? I think that could look quite good. I think that could be good. What I also like to do sometimes is when I'm unsure about a change, I just split. I do basically like a branch, like a different branch, right? I just save the previous version somewhere else in case I want to go back to that version essentially. So yeah, I can also do like we now have 3 directions basically, right? And now that I look at it, actually, I should add to the list of drawbacks that icons are not precise. The icons are not precise because take a look, for example, at the laptop. No laptop has these screen proportions, all right? So I know this is a very minor thing, but attention to detail is important. Those remaining 2 icons, they look okay, but stuff like this is what's gonna differentiate you from AI, I think, to be completely honest. Long story short, to not lose your job to AI, you probably need to do a better job. And currently that seems to be, to me, attention to detail and creativity. So I think the laptop icon could look something like this. All right, I think it could look something like this, maybe slightly less on the rounding. Yeah, I think this looks more like a laptop now. All right, you can't really see it, but if you compare these two, I just think this is a better representation of what a laptop actually looks like. Then with the drop, I think we could do a circle and then enter, click on this one, or actually press Command or Control and then click it. And then click on this again and move this up and enter, and we have a nice drop. Then I could also click on this point and move it up 2 pixels. And yep, we get a nice symmetrical droplet. We could do the same stroke width as with this one. So it's gonna be 3. Yep, I like this. Ergonomic straps. Now, I think this is quite a good icon, to be honest. I'm just gonna replicate it and do some changes. Like I'm gonna add a stroke, 3, centered, round these on the top, and then select the object, enter, click once here, and then click on this line, exactly on this line until it turns blue, and then delete, and then click this again and just use my arrows to position this where I need it to be, which would be somewhere around here. Then select all of these and move them up a little bit. Yep. Then just click this one and do some rounding. All right. So I think this is overall a cleaner version of whatever icon the AI came up with. So yeah, I think we're going to use this one. Let me just make it white. Awesome. But again, I have to give credit. These icons are pretty good. All I did here is adjust some very minor details, but this is definitely usable. So that's kind of scary. Never mind. Let's continue. Let's just select all of them and move them over here. And I think now that I look at it again, I think I'm just going to use the initial version, right? Let's move this on to the next iteration. Now, do these icons now fit this overall vibe? I don't think they do, actually. I don't think they do. Did I do all of those icons for nothing? Also, no, I did not. But I think we could, for example, do this. We could, for example, create a fill on this one and remove the stroke. And then also none and none. So to get a little bit of a sharper look on the icons. Now this is something else. I like this. So I cannot explain it fully, but with this overall vibe, this style of icons is going to work better than this one. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense, because I'm unable to explain it better. I just think it fits better. With the droplet, I think we could do like a gradient, like a radial one. Both white, one of them transparent, however, and it's going to just extend, like it's going to start here, it's going to extend somewhere around here. Yeah, I think this looks pretty good. For this one, I just got an idea. So first of all, yes, sharp edges, and then let's just press enter and move this one down. And then let's do one thing, actually. Let's do a gradient, and this gradient is gonna be, I think, an angular one. I hope we can make this work. This one's gonna be an angular one. We're gonna get the middle point is gonna be at the middle. Yes, that's good. The white, let's move it over here, and then let's click and add another point. And I'm always a bit confused with angular gradients, to be completely honest with you. I feel like I can't understand them intuitively, but we're gonna make this work. What I wanna do is basically make it go into transparency from somewhere around here. Let me duplicate this point again by Option and dragging. Okay, we're getting closer, but I think now we can shorten this actually. Let me enter and then let's move the end of this to somewhere around here. Can we make this work? Can we actually make this work? Let me move this, the center here. Let's try again. White, whoops, got closed. No, I added another one. I don't want that. Let's, damn, okay. Yeah, something like this. Yeah, this is something I had in mind. Okay, perfect. Should I maybe, I don't know, do this? Or should I make this lower transparency? No, I should not. I should add another point somewhere around here. Move this one, and this one I'm going to reduce in opacity. Yes, this is exactly what I'm going for. See, this is a kind of attention to detail that AI is unable to do for now. So if you take a look at these, of course I'm biased towards my own work, towards my own preferences, but I just think these look better. I think these look more elaborate. Let me remove those. All right, and I think that now we could actually create a frame for all of this to standardize the size. So I think we could go with the frame that is 32. So I'm pressing F on my keyboard and clicking and dragging to create a frame that's 32. I'm gonna just create some background for this so that we can see where exactly it is. Okay, and you can see that we actually need a larger frame for this. So let's go for 37. Let's go for 37 and let's put these two inside of the frame actually. Command X, select, Command V. Okay, nice. We got an odd number in terms of width. So I'm just gonna add 1 pixel and then center and then make this 36 by 36. 36 by 36. Okay. Let's duplicate, press both of these, enter, delete. Okay, I'm gonna place these inside center and then place these inside center. And now let's rename these. Let's rename these to laptop, this one to water resistant, and this one, what was that? Ergonomic straps. Ergonomic straps. Okay, and let's take all of them, remove the background. Select all of them again, Option A to align. All right, let me duplicate the text and make it like 16. That's too small, so 30 maybe. Let's do laptop compartment, Let's also do water resistant material. So water, let's just do water resistant, right? Let's just simplify. And ergonomic straps. And let's see what the icons look like next to it. I think we need to make this less bold, so like regular maybe. And let's go for 33 maybe. Let's do Command Option right bracket to move it above the shadow. All right. And what if we move them closer? What if we move them like this? What if we move them like this and then just center these icons like this? I think this works. I don't like the droplet now. I think I'm gonna make it just fully white. Let me just do white instead of the gradient. What do we think? And let's make this one a bit more white again. Yeah, I think this is better. And let's just take two of these, Shift A, auto layout. 24 in terms of spacing, both of these Shift A, 24, both of these Shift A, 24, and now take all of these Shift A, and then let's experiment with the distance. Let's go for what, 12, 20? Who knows? I think this needs to be larger. I think I'm gonna duplicate this again, and I'm gonna just do K on my keyboard and drag it out like this. drag it out to be about this size. I think it needs a little bit less on the spacing. Maybe let's move this a bit towards the center, like this, to be more like closely related to the backpack. What do we think? What do we think about this? Do we like this? I don't like this. I don't like this. I'm gonna revert it back. Revert it back. Yep. No, I think I'm just gonna keep it. I think I'm just gonna keep it here, to be honest. I think I'm just gonna keep it here. Let's actually group these, laptop and the shadow. Why don't we try and make this larger? Would that work? I don't think that would work. No, I don't think that works. I don't think that works. I think I'm just gonna keep it like this. Yeah, final decision. This is what we do with the icon section. All right, and next, the next thing is gonna be the CTA and the brand. So the brand is just text. That's just text. We can create that very easily. That's like inter semi-bold, I think. Let's make this shorter. And I think we could position the brand somewhere around here, make it smaller, right? Because assuming that this runs on social media, there is definitely going to be a profile picture of the brand. So we do not have to push the brand as heavily, because the user is already going to see it somewhere here. So maybe in the bottom right corner, slightly smaller. Yeah, I think that could work actually. Maybe if we rotate it like this to be just a little bit more interesting. Maybe now we can make it larger maybe. What do we think about this? This looks interesting, no? Don't you think? Brand. But rotated which way? Like this? Yeah, I think this could work. I think this is pretty nice. Yeah, I do like this. So now for the CTA. Now with all of this, with considering how the background is set up, I think we should just use definitely a white background. So let me just copy this brand, different font size, Shift A, and let's add a white background on the auto layout. And then of course, black on the text for sure. Increase the paddings. So on the auto layout, let's call this CTA. And then let's do, I don't know, 60, 70 by 40. I don't know if we should get rounded corners. I think it could be rounded a little bit, or maybe a more sharp, chiseled look is gonna fit better with the brand. Maybe we could add like an arrow. We could add like an arrow maybe. So Shift L, click, 4 or 5, press enter again, position the dot to make the arrow shorter, and then Command X, select the auto layout, Command V, and we now have a CTA with an arrow. Yeah, I think this is pretty good. So now if we, for example, align it with the top edge of the brand, we now got a nice invisible line going like this and basically slicing the space into the section, into a bottom section. So it's creating like a invisible implied footer of sorts. So I do like this. I do like that. Now, if you're designing, you want to work with a golden ratio. So why don't we, for example, slice this layout in terms of the golden ratio? The golden ratio is 1.618. So I'm going to write it down, 1.618. And if we want to split a space, we just divide 860. We divide 860 by 1.618, and we get approximately 530. So let's do 530. And if we align it to the right side, if we position the button so that it ends somewhere around here, we got a golden ratio split of the space. But I don't think it looks good. So I'm gonna actually keep the previous size. All right, you don't have to always follow that, but if you're unsure about a positioning of elements within a space, you can use the golden ratio as a rough guide, as a rough starting point. Now, what I think is needed is for the background to have a gradient, to be honest, to add a bit more depth. So I'm just going to add a gradient. It's going to be a linear one. It's going to go from black to slightly lighter, like a dark gray. Although, again, now that I look at it, it actually doesn't look good. That's just how it is with design. You just go back and forth. And so what I think could also look cool is if we somehow split the space into with a line. Let's try and do that. It should go all the way to the edges, a line to the top. I simply use the pen tool and we could place it, for example, over here. So what this creates is, again, it somehow splits the brand, the logo, away from the rest of the space, placing more importance onto this element, right? On whatever you can find in this section. So if I were to rotate this, this looks like a website header, right? And that's especially what we're going for. So you're communicating with this design decision. And by the way, you should always put rationale behind all of your design decisions. You're basically communicating that, hey, whatever's here is different somehow from the rest of the thing, be it that it's more important, that it's higher in the logical hierarchy, anything. And you can try and maybe adding another line if we could find somehow a good placement for it. Maybe one line here that's going to split the text away from the rest of the layout. And as you can see, it also aligns nicely with the golden ratio splitting of space. So placing a line somewhere around here could actually work. Maybe it could be like very subtle, maybe like 12 points. I don't know. Let's try that. Then yeah, I think I like this. I think I'm gonna go for 16. In terms of opacity, I really like lines in a layout because it splits the space, it leads your eye, and it creates order in the layout. Yep. All right, so yep, I would say that's it. I think, let me just move all of this over here. Now, this is AI generated and this is redesigned. This is the final result. So what do you guys think? Do you agree that this ad looks better? I think it does. Maybe I'm just biased, maybe it's just subjective. But yeah, like overall, I think that in the future we're gonna get a similar type of a workflow, right? You're gonna get some kind of results, some kind of designs from AI, and your job is gonna be to refine or expand on or change or approve whatever the AI has created in order to produce the most, hopefully, the best designs. So therefore, I believe that designers should know and will need to know, especially now with AI, we need to be proficient in design principles and in visual communication, in visual language. We need to be able to determine which design is better and which one is worse and why. So if you're not going to lose your job to AI as a designer, which I definitely hope you're not going to lose a job. Ideally, none of us would lose a job to AI. Everybody knows that that's probably not going to happen. But your job is probably going to change. And it's going to change to being a creative lead, a creative director for AIs, for AI models that will design stuff for you, right? So there's definitely going to be a step up in seniority required for basically the whole industry. And I just think the best way to go about preparing for this is to refresh the fundamentals, to be aware of design principles and understand what you're creating and being able to provide rationale and reasons behind your design decisions or the AI's decisions. So I hope you like this. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did enjoy this, let me know by leaving a like or leaving a comment if you want me to make this a recurring series. If you want to buy the source file, check the link in the description. You're going to be able to use this in your own projects. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. And I will see you in the next one.